everybody, and welcome back to the Quick Cast. It's been a while since our last episode. Over the last couple of months, we have been making a few changes in our BFA. We've been doing some new courses. We had a conference. It was super exciting. And now, because we are heading back into our fall ramp up, I decided it's been way too long since we've done a Quick Cast. And so we are back on it today. We have a super interesting topic. And this is something that some of you have asked inadvertently without realizing that you asked this question. It's actually come up in a couple of different conversations that we've had where someone knows a coworker's or a family member's strengths, and they have asked, is that really what that's supposed to look like? Is that really a strength? And inadvertently, they're asking, are all strengths strengths? And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is the question about, is it possible for you to have something that doesn't show up as a strength? So I have Terry on today. We're going to talk a little bit about the order of strengths and whether or not that's important. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about the actual question of, are all strengths strengths? Does everyone have strengths? So let's take it away, Terry and Becca, and welcome back. Thank you all for tuning in today. I hope you enjoy.
Yeah, we often will talk about these strengths being little people in our heads, like that Disney movie, Inside Out. And I've always loved that as I've been learning the strengths and thinking about it. And then when we talk about how one strength might get along with another or might have an issue with another, and it's very good from a teaching, coaching point of view. And we always encourage people to think about that. But then as we've been doing these other new things that Becca's come up with, some secret courses that are going on, which is really cool, she'll tell you about after, I've also started to see, oh my goodness, not only are they little individuals that are all different, but they all speak different languages. And understanding each of their languages means better communication with them. And it was from that, as well as combined with, I think everyone's frustration through life is not feeling understood, miscommunication issues. And that's always been a big one for me. And I realized, like, there's been times, and nothing frustrates me more than to say something, like to give a compliment and have it taken as an insult or offend someone. And it always freaks me out. I'm like, I was so obvious that I was giving that person a compliment. Why are they seeming to tense up, or they seem downright hostile or upset with me? And because I am a bit of an a-hole, but I'm never mean to be one on purpose. And so specifically, I had a talk with Becca one night. We were talking about different things, and I made a mention about her communication. And thankfully, she felt good enough, good enough friends that she said, that really hurt me. And I mean, she wasn't laughing, but she's like, I could tell that hurt her. And yeah, she didn't go, that really hurt me. She went, that's kind of hurtful, Terry. And I'm like, why? I don't understand at all. And it turned out, because the way I had said it tripped her strength in a defensive way. And meanwhile, I was using it in a fun, awesome, like joking kind of way and so that really set me back and made me realize, holy cow, these things are all understanding each other from a different, she heard it differently. Yeah. And so I love this. Yeah. To me, it's a new thing that I'm talking about in my coaching. And I love it because it's so true. Like, and even the strengths within each other, how the other strengths are all around them changes I always think back to this experiment that I read about in Discover magazine years ago. And it was about language and development of language. And they took 30 kids that hadn't spoke, that were just learning to speak, like 6 or 7-year-old kids. I mean, they could speak well. And they put them on an island, not Lord of the Flies style, but they put them on this island where they all spoke different languages to see how linguistics would go and how a group of people with different languages would go. And they all developed a new language based on that, how they all were interacting with each other. After a few weeks, they developed this new language to communicate, which was fascinating to me. Because when I'm misunderstood, I feel really bad about myself. So it's helped me realize that, oh no, I just need to learn the communication better. I need to learn what the language is for that person better. And it's been really helpful and very good communicating actionable items during a coaching call when they hear it in their own language. It's been very powerful for transformation and for learning.
Yeah. I think it underlines part of what we're going to talk about today, which, just to let everybody on the podcast know, I have not prepped Terry at all to talk about this, specifically because I wanted to get the response. And just so you all know, for Terry's safety, we do edit this. So if he was really uncomfortable, we would just stop recording. But I wanted to get
more
his...
like really inappropriate, because I will probably say the wrong things.
Yeah.
I have strong opinions.
Yeah. So we're safe. We're fine. But I wanted to get more of an off the cuff adaptability response to this. Because I think that having adaptability and empathy, Terry can be a little more responsive in the moment emotionally to how people might hear something or respond to something. So I wanted to just get that, the benefit of that strength combo in this, because obviously my intellection, my communication, I've been thinking about this for a while. And so one of the questions that comes up a lot in reference, and I'm going to give a touch of context about why it comes up so often and why we're not addressing that particular question, but why we are instead going to address another question. So one of the most common questions that I get is, but I'm adaptable. Why don't I have adaptability? But I'm empathetic, or I'm emotional, or I'm kind, and I think I should have empathy. And then what I often think in my head, and this is why we don't have this particular conversation, what we always do as coaches is we redirect them towards what do they have in their top that is making them act in that way, right? And we do that for different reasons. But I don't ever have the conversation that we're about to have, because in the moment, that is not important. But is it important to have on a theoretical level? I do think so, because where we inevitably go in my head is, I'll just use Terry's ideation as an example. Whenever somebody who has a lower ideation says to me, but I have ideas all the time, my immediate response is, especially if they have like a, let's say a 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so somewhere that feels still pretty strong, but is definitely not top 5. And I'll say, I want you to sit with Terry. In my head, this is what I'm thinking. I want you to sit with Terry and listen to how his ideation works. And then you will see that you do not have this strength. But in the moment when we're coaching, that's not the important conversation to have, because that's too theoretical, right? So the podcast is a place where we get to back off and be a little bit theoretical for a second and talk about, and here's the big question is, does everyone have strengths? Does everyone have strengths? Or when I see a 5 ideation on my chart, does that mean that it is a strength of ideation, that it is a balcony, or that it is acting as ideation? And this is a super theoretical question, and we're going to get at it from a couple of ways during this podcast. And the reason we're having it is not for any one person to be told, oh, you don't have ideation. That's not the point. The point is, we like to be theoretical. I'm high in election. Terry's pretty high in election. He's high ideation. I'm pretty high ideation. We like to talk about this stuff. So today as coaches, we are going to talk about the question of, does everyone have strengths, and does the order matter? So in what way does it matter, and in what way does it not matter? Right?
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, and I've learned so much from you, and it's not that we disagree. It's just that some things
we have different perspectives.
Yeah, different perspectives, because you've been doing it for so much longer. I've been doing it, and there's a new way they're teaching it in the certifying and that kind of thing. Do strengths matter in the order? So that's a question, right? I agree 100% with you that your top strengths matter. Like that your 1, 2, maybe 3 can be your always stuff that you call it in your always bucket.
Like the first instinct.
Yeah, is strong. And that yes, those. Now, does it matter between my ideation and strategic if they were flipped? I think, yeah, in cases where they're strong in people. But here's the other thing, and I'm going to go all over the place here probably because you gave me my adaptability going. But we've seen, like, I don't know how many times I've spoken with you after coaching call went. I met with someone that was ideation, and I, they were not, like, I expected way more from them from an ideation point of view. And you're like, because when you first met me, you said your ideation is off the charts, like it's super high. And then I've been seeing it more and more. So I think the answer is your strengths are your strengths, but they can still always get better, which is the whole concept of the better faster, right? And of Gallup themselves, is that you can always make them better and get better improvement by working on those strengths. So when we think of my ideation, for instance, my ideation was there, wired in me from birth, blah blah blah. But I had both parents who definitely had ideation. I had grandparents who always fostered me. We played games about coming up with ideas. My ideas were encouraged. As a 7 or 8 year old child, I could talk to adults if I wanted to act like an adult. And so that was fostered. So I've been given all of these opportunities my whole life. Then any job I went to, I was encouraged to give my ideas, where some people are stuck at jobs where they're like, we don't want to hear that, be quiet, just do your job, you know. And so I always gravitated towards places that valued my strengths. And so then fast forward all these years, and I've just been practicing, going. And so I would say in that kind of a situation, your strengths really do have that order, right?
They get well, and they get better faster, right? Like, I think this is why we do the better hyphen faster, is that you don't just get in areas where you have that high potential. Again, this is the strength, the theory, the core theory of strengths is not a positivity theory. And this is what's so important to me, is that I think sometimes it comes across as a positivity theory, like, yay, we all have strengths, this is so awesome, aren't we great, right? And I'm like, I mean, yes, that is true, but the core concept of this whole let's say philosophy or theory behind strengths is that they were found by studying the people who were literally at the tippy top, the top 1% in their industries. And it was across industries. It was everywhere they could find the best of the best. And they interviewed them about how they were successful. So the patterns themselves emerged out of an already proven level of success. And this is why I do think that it's important that both the order and the fact that, yes, everyone has themes and capacity for strengths. It's like, I have the potential there, but is it actualized? Has everyone actualized their strengths? No. And is everyone's ideation at number one the same? No. Like, the more you work on your strengths, like my input as a number one input, whose input was fostered both by my family of origin and also intentionally by me for the last 15 years, very intentionally, my input has grown beyond what I even thought was possible of it. It's 10 times more strong than I even dreamed was possible when I was 20,
and
25, 26, 27.
Continues to grow and grow.
And it will continue to grow.
So you just brought up a huge point, which we don't talk about much in the Better Faster Academy, when I went to get certified, there was very little surprises, very little things. It's a horrible thing to say, very little things that I learned, because Becca had been teaching me, like, every day we chat about strength for a year. One of the things they said, and you just said it, so I'm going to catch it. These things over here we call them strengths, and they do manifest as that, but they call them talent themes. That you have the ideation talent theme, you have the strategic talent theme, and the talent theme is built up of these different strands, these different things that are in the description. And when you're using them to their fullest, then you manifest strengths. The strengths that you manifest come from these talent themes. And so I have the ideation talent. The ideation talent theme is the what they use now. And so yes, what you just said is so perfect, that it can continue to grow, can continue to improve. And just because you have this doesn't mean you manifest it the same way or at all. There are some people that have, your dominant stuff, you're going to manifest in those ways, right? That's just
sometimes, right? Yeah. But sometimes we also see people who have a strength in their top 5 or top 10 that is not manifesting as a strength. Like it's definitely a
Right.
theme. I can see the capacity there. Like I can see, and as a developer, I can see that you could have more potential in that area and you could grow more towards a strength. But I definitely can see that like it's not acting as a strength right now.
Correct.
The
You
way
gave
that
me a
it's
great
acting is hurting you.
you gave me a great example of that. I remember one time had someone do a test, and I'm just going to say it, positivity came up, and I said, well, I don't see positivity at all. I don't see positivity coming out of this person at all. And you said, this is a great example. You're like, it's possible it's not, because I said they're the opposite of positivity. They're the most negative creature I've ever heard of or seen in my life. And you said that's how the talent theme in a basement for a long time can manifest. It does. These things don't always show up as strengths, and you're totally right. This I think this goes exactly with what you're saying. It's not all rah. It's not all awesome. And this woman, who none of you know, and she's not really close in my family outside, but I know the person well enough over the years, is probably the most toxic, evil person you'd ever want to meet. I don't give that moniker very often.
No,
But
your
I was blown away.
positivity is stronger
Right.
than that,
But I
right?
was blown away
Yeah.
by when you said that can come from positivity. And I'm like, holy cow. And it's not a strength at all.
Yeah.
Is that a good example?
Oh, yeah. It's very hard to talk about this in terms of our public facing discussions because it's not as fun and uplifting sometimes of a conversation. Whereas I think we can come across very positivity around here because we all get so excited. And the people that you see that we interview on the podcast are all showing the strengths. And then some people will look at those videos and be like, I have an election and I don't do that. Like, I don't have this. And I'm like, well, are you using your intellection to its fullest capacity? It doesn't sound like you are. So let's talk about how you can do that. And that's a painful conversation to have with people. Like, when you look at how this test was created, it was literally created by an extreme data collection system. And so it was, how are the most successful people successful? And when I'm not following that pattern, but the pattern is in me to follow, then what I want to do as a development of my strengths is to work harder on those talent capacities so that I can more fully become that. I level up and level up and level up in my strengths. But then by nature, that means that there are people who, let's say, of all the number one ideations in the world, you're going to fall on a gradient of how much are you using that for your own success and how much is it working against you. And that's why we talk about balconies and basements, right? Is we want to shave those basements off so that you don't let your ideation work against you anymore and you start to be able to control it better and better and better.
Yep. And the connectedness is a great example because, and that goes to another point maybe, when I look at the top view down of connectedness, I'm like, I am so connectedness. I love to put how things are all connected and how things all relate. And I love serendipity and I love that in stories and my storytelling. But the truth is that we learn more from learning more, is that I have connectedness with a little c, not the big C, right? I don't have the talent theme connectedness. I'm able to see the connections and do different things, but from a way different level, which is a great point, I think.
Well, and that that comes from your ideation and your strategic, right?
Of course.
It doesn't come from a connectedness theme.
Absolutely.
And again, the reason that's important is not because we want to label people. It really is because of the capacity development. If we try to develop Terry the way that you would develop a high connectedness, he would not respond to it in a better, faster way because he does not have high connectedness. And as a number 2 connectedness, I can tell you he doesn't have it.
Right.
It's not that people who are right, it's not a negative thing. It's literally just, this is the benefit of going deeper and deeper and deeper into this stuff. Because so just to switch this around to a writer's perspective, because that's what we're focusing on, is specifically writers and how they evince these strengths. Like, let's say that as a high ideation, you're having difficulty focusing because there are too many ideas. Then that means that there's work to be done to make your ideation work for you instead of against you. right? And you may need to stop trying to focus on only one thing and instead let yourself do little mini focuses on other ideas to get them out of the way and see if they're the thing that needs to take over for a while. And if they're not, then they'll go away. Or there may be an idea curation system that you need to develop of some kind in order to help that. But what we don't want to do is to let ideation work against us.
Right.
Because, and this is the metaphor that I always use, if strengths, themes, potential for success are nuclear power, then they have an equal capacity or an equal potential to be a warhead and a power plant. So we want to not warhead ourselves into a lack of success because we are not developing off the basements, because we're just saying, oh, I have ideation, so that means I don't have to work. Like, I don't have to actually get work done.
Yeah.
That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is ideations will be productive in a different way than achievers will be productive. But we still want the ideation to work for us in terms of, I want it to not get in the way of me producing my best capacity as what an ideation writer would look like. And then it takes sometimes the coming back to our videos to say, well, what does an ideation writer then in its prime look like? And how do I make myself more like that thing?
Another thing that I think I'm trying to use more, and I think is a good thing for everybody watching this to use more, is when you get your full 34 report, it gives you a breakdown of your top 5 strengths in a much more detailed way. And as you start to learn the strengths more, you'll realize, I remember first reading it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's me, that's me, that's me. But then the truth is if someone else's number 1 ideation, their report on their ideation is going to be different than mine based on the other strengths, super different. And so I've started asking people before a coaching call now to send me their report, because we're seeing a lot more mini small letter strengths in there. And then we see how their strengths manifest individually towards themselves. And that's a big thing, because using your example of, if my ideation needs more focus, a high focus person would give advice that works for focus, but will never work for ideation.
Won't work for ideation.
And that's the thing we try to keep in mind. We always have to keep in mind, like, we're, as coaches, we are going to coach to our style. Like, we're going to coach as we are, which is why you want to try different coaches as well. You know, our individualization helps us in certain ways, but there's other people that have different strengths where you'll get something out of that coaching session, which is a really cool thing. But we, as coaches, I know Beck and I for sure, and Susan as individualization, we want to coach as custom to that person as possible, and talk their language and talk to their way of doing it. And so sometimes we'll do things that don't seem right because we're trying to hone in on that. Whereas, and again, you got to be careful of your coaching that you're getting, because sometimes if you're hearing stuff that's not you and doesn't assimilate to you and can't find a way to do it, then it can be a struggle. But definitely we hear Becca's connectedness way more in her coaching than we hear it in mine. We hear my ideation more in mine than we do in Becca's, which is all not bad. It's just a thing to be aware of.
It's just how we are, right? Yeah. But it's also part of why we're doing, so we've made a couple of shifts in the BFA, Better Faster Academy recently. For those of you who are primarily QuickCast listeners and haven't taken any of our classes, the Better Faster Academy is the place where we house all of our coaching. So we do both a productivity class, which is Write Better Faster, which is not strengths only. It's everything. It's your whole life. It's everything. And then we do a Strengths for Writers, which is a coaching cohort class where we coach you individually, multiple different coaches. And we've started adding some other things to the BFA recently to address the development, because we're feeling like, okay, people are starting to know what their strengths are. We're working through all of the strength themed videos that we've been doing. And we are going to get to all of those also. Those of you who keep coming back because you're waiting for like your analytical or your individualization or something, those are coming, or your ideation, which I just realized we also haven't done. Those are still coming. I've found even just in our Facebook group or in our forums on our website, when we watch other people who have high ideation talk to each other, they do a little bit of coaching without realizing it, just because they're speaking to the ideation. And so one of the ways that we're heading in the future is we're trying to train and bring on more coaches who have specialty fields. So our goal over the next, I would say year probably, we have about 10 strengths that we have a couple of coaches who are coming on where you'll be able to say to your initial coach, like, I have an ideation. I would really like to get ideation coaching, or I would like to get analytical coaching or focus coaching. Um, and then we would have a person to send you to who specializes in that strength, both because they have been trained and certified by Gallup, because I do think that's the most important part of our threshold, is that you come here and we are all trained and certified by Gallup when we coach. But additionally, when you have a top 5 strength, especially if you don't have the experience, like you don't have 15 years of coaching, you can talk about that strength with so much more facility. And so it's so much easier to talk to somebody who has your top 5. And we already do a lot of our coaching assignments just in our who gets which person based on our top 5 already, just because we've seen it be so effective. And so we're going to go more in that direction as well. The podcast will continue to be things like this video, right? And like our QTP series, we have a QTP, several QTP episodes coming up. We have a Superstars series that's going to be coming up as well. And then we're also trying to finish all of the strengths, which has taken us way longer than I thought. But we're definitely going to be moving into specializing as we get farther and farther into this development process, because that's really where the power of strengths is. The power of strengths is not a rah-rah cheerleader, yay, we're all so awesome thing, because if that's not based in reality, again, I'm not super high in positivity. So if that's not based in reality, then I don't want to give you that false hope that you might be able to accomplish this thing if only you just think, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. But we want to actually focus on your consistent development and help you to get to the place where you can be that person. Because what we're realizing is that strength development is not primarily about how you think about yourself. It's primarily about how you form, how you act. And so we're very much switching into a focus on that sort of liturgy, that daily practice, that consistent, regular practice of your strengths. And so look for that. And we wanted to kick this off with the does everyone have strengths conversation, because philosophically, I think this is a really important place to start, is to recognize that, ouch, I may not be, if I'm a number 5 significance, I may not be in the top 1% of all significances yet. Like, I may have work to do to get there, to really let my significance help.
May not be in the top 80% yet.
I may not be in the top 80%.
Right? That's a great point, and it makes so much sense logically, and this has been driven by coaching clients and everyone, this has been driven by you. You guys see it, you want more. It's like going for your first guitar lesson or piano lesson and then never doing it again and saying, well, I know how to play the piano, or reading the first chapter of a book about a brand new thing you've never heard about and go, well, I know how to do it. The truth is, that's not true. You know that you like it. You know that you want to take the next step forward, and you like admitting that these talent themes may not be a strength just because they're number 2 on your thing. That's big girl, big boy pants that we're putting on now. That's the stuff that you can now handle that. Whereas at the first, you just want to hear it's all sweet and happy and fuzzy with unicorns. But now we need to know this, which is, I'm pleasantly surprised to be on this podcast that have Becca talking about this. I thought she was going to publicly fire me in front of you all. Which, by the way, another great idea. Not a bad idea. That could get likes. But this is a really good growth.
Yeah, we're not shock jocks around here.
Yeah, but this is also a growth point for Better Faster Academy, right? A progression.
Yes.
Like, and really, when you think of what has been going on the last year and a half or year with Becca and the Better Faster Academy, if you came here 2 or 3 years ago, you wouldn't recognize what's going on now. There's more coaches involved. There's more programs involved. There's more videos involved. There's more specialized stuff involved. for the people that want that. And if you're just here to visit, you know, and take the test and have one call and say, okay, that's interesting, and then leave it, that's fine, because the world is filled with that. Nothing wrong with that at all, because even a little bit of knowledge
we're
is
here
better.
for that too. That's
Absolutely.
originally what I thought we were going to do, right? Was just like, that was what I thought our job was just to sort of be like the person who goes around and does the megaphone of like, okay, everybody know your strengths, know your strengths.
Well, rightly
And then
so,
I
because
started to see like there's so much hunger to develop them into real success patterns, and not just to stumble upon the ones that I'm already using. Because really, when you take the test, that's what you're doing. You're stumbling upon, like, and Terry's ideation is a great example. He hadn't taken the test. I think it's been 2 years now since he took the test. So for the first blah, blah, blah years of his life, you know, he was acting naturally as a competent ideation, a top, and I would consider his ideation to be top 1% ideation, just like without him knowing even that that was a thing. So he took the test and he realized, oh, there are some of these things that I'm balcony in, I'm really doing great work in. And then these other things, I can see them in me and I think I'm strong in them, right? Like I would agree that they're strengths, but there's still more growth capacity available. And I was explaining this about my input the other day, because I spent a couple of years after I first learned about input, because it was my number one. And I thought, well, if it's my number one, that's where my, you know, best capacity is. And of course, as a significance, I'm like, well, I'm going to dominate that. Like I'm going to be the, you know, the best input ever. And so I did all of this work and I developed the input. And when I stood at that gate at 24 years old and thought, this is what I wanted, this is the threshold that I want to hit, this is what top 1% input looks like, right? And that's where I'm headed. And now, blah 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 years later, almost 2 decades later, right, I'm like, that top that I thought I would hit when I was 27 is now so far behind me that I didn't even believe it was possible to get to where I am today. And now when I look ahead and see what I think is possible, I'm sure that there are 10 times levels beyond that that I don't even know that I could get to, because I continue to work on it. But the key is, if we continue to work on them, they get better, faster and better, faster and better, faster and better, faster. The key is not, oh, great, I have all these strengths and now I'm done. And now I'm going to move on to the next thing and sort of be like, yay, it's another tool in my arsenal. No. Do you want to stand out? Do you want to stand out?
Yeah.
Right? Like, then this is the way to get there.
Well, and the other really fast thing that's important for me to mention, Becca might not like this, but I'm going to mention it because we can edit it out. Well, a lot of people get this, and we've been seeing this. You see this more and more. People get it, and they're bitten. They're hungry. They go, "I want more." And the average person, like what Becca's done to get here, has dedicated her life to this without even knowing, because it was fun and interesting and exciting.
I loved it.
But she's got so much knowledge which you can't get anywhere else. No, and this isn't a hype. This is the truth. And she thinks it's all simple because it's just in her head. And so she just gives it to you. Like at the conference, she just gave it to everybody. And this is what she said. She said, well, this will be fun because I'll give everybody everything I've learned in 15 years. We'll do that in 4 days. And then they'll all be fine and they can go on with their lives and they'll be caught up.
And they'll never need us again. Yeah.
But it's so funny because
my staff, all their minds went.
Right.
Like,
but
Becca,
it's so funny
crazy.
because I didn't judge her, because I made a similar comment. I got a job one time as a manager of a group. And I said to my boss who had hired me, I said, 6 months from now, you won't need me. He said, why? I said, because everyone will learn what we expect, how to do things. They'll all improve. And then I'll be redundant. And he laughed and he said, that's not the way it goes. And so I've experienced the same kind of thing. And so the benefit here is staying longer, doing new things, going deeper is going to get you there. And you're going to get access to knowledge that you can't get in one call or 2 calls, and sharing the language with those other, like her just putting the groups of people that have that strength together is a huge, huge, huge thing, which is going to enrich the lives of those people more than we can ever hope. And it'll just be a stray comment here or a stray comment there in the language that they both speak, where it's like resonance go, oh my gosh, that's it. And so, yeah, it's very exciting time. And to me, super exciting that Becca's doing this, because before she was just there was so many people to introduce it to, but leaving in a wake of people that wanted more. And so now she's listening, and she's always listened. I'm not saying she hasn't, but I
Well, I
think
don't know
people
that I
watching
was
this will be
listening
excited.
though, right? I was like, oh, it's okay. I'll get, like there are lots of places to get the information.
But there's not.
And I would send them to places to get the information. And then they would like scoop up that information and that wasn't enough, right? And I'm like, oh, well, and I would just make offhanded comments like, well, this is why that happens because blah, blah, blah. And they're just like, how did you learn that? And I was literally like, I have input and I've been doing this for 15 years. The amount of information that I have stored in my head about how strengths act is literally endless. It is endless. And they were just like, can you give us a list of this? Can you give us a list of that? How does this work? And I'm like, okay, clearly there's more educate, like I need to deliver more. So we're going to do that. Like I'm going to deliver more. We're still going to continue to do the podcast as often as we can. I apologize if it won't be as regular. Thankfully, if you're subscribed, you can turn your notifications on so that you get emails whenever we do a new podcast. We are going to go back to doing the strengths as often as possible because we have to coordinate multiple people's schedules. It can be a little bit difficult to get
That's the
those done.
challenge. The challenge isn't in you, Becca. It's getting three other like
It's getting
popular people in the
three, yeah,
industry to
three
get
really
together at the
successful
same day.
authors.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah. So we will do those as often as we can. And we will get through all of those. If you're on the Patreon, we also have live coaching opportunities that are group coaching calls. And I always want to suggest those where if you haven't been able to do coaching yet because of the price barrier, we have these much easier to hit priced group coaching opportunities that you can do as well. And so I just want to make sure that as we're heading into what is going to be a difficult time for us, the next year is not going to get easier. It's going to get harder, and it's probably going to get significantly harder for some of us the longer this goes on. And so we really need to link arms and be there for each other. And one of the ways that we do that is by encouraging you to join our community, right? Which is what our Patreon has become. And so we hope that you all will come and do that because I
Yeah.
think that'll be really important.
And
And I
that's
just want to
and
say,
that's a free click, right? Patreon you can just follow for
Patreon
free
you can
just to
follow
keep
for
up to
free.
date on stuff. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
And the news and our newsletter as well, you can follow for free. And like I said, Terry and I have a book that we're working on, which you can see the cover, which we haven't technically released anywhere except the Patreon yet. But so the book that we're working on, which is called Dear Writer, You Are Not Alone, is all about author success archetypes. And so that is going to be a really fun process. We are going to do some discussion of those author success archetypes on the Patreon. And so if that's something that you want to know more about as we work on it, please head over there. And again, we'll have that link in the show notes. And I just want to say a huge thank you to Terry and to Susan, especially the two of our other two coaches in the Better Faster Academy, just for the amazing help that they have been to me, because our expansion is 100% due to the fact that I had people that I could bring on staff. And we are bringing more people on. We have two more that are coming on in, I think, October, November ish. And then we have a whole group of people that we're talking to about potentially doing some coaching training and getting them certified and all that stuff in the future. So I'm very excited about where we're headed. And I think that this is going to be an exciting time for us because we will get to help all of you. And we're also going to provide some either free or very, very low pay point coaching opportunities that are group coaching with our other coaches, with the non-Becca coaches, because part of the issue is that my time is more limited. And so that's why we have fewer opportunities for me. And so as we're bringing more coaches on,
it's booked up. This is the
it's
thing.
booked
You've
up.
ran, everyone's got Becca working. Like Becca's literally working on the phone Zoom calls for 12 and 14 hours a day, and she
Yeah.
hates to say no, and she's just saying more and more, which is
Yes.
difficult.
I love it. I love it. But it
Yeah, but
definitely is getting to a point where we need to start doing some more group coaching and stuff, but we are going to do it with not Becca. And so there will be opportunities for that as well. Susan and Terry are so amazing at this. And both of them have been partly because of their personality also, but because they got bit by the bug, like they're just so excited about it. And so they have been doing really great work. So we're going to have some opportunities to do group coaching with them as well. And so look for that upcoming this fall. I hope that part of what you take away from this call is an enthusiasm about the fact that the work is there to do to make us into that better, faster version of ourselves, and that we're here to help do the work. We're here to help make it happen. And so I'm excited about the future, and I'm resigned about the upcoming difficulties that we're all going to face together, but I think we're going to face them together. And so we're going to get through it, and we're all going to be okay. I just want to make sure you all know that we're going to be here. We're going to continue to produce content. We're going to continue to have the Patreon and coach and have classes, and you can still join the office if you want to, which is our daily, and really it's almost 24 hours at this point because we have people from all different countries on it. And that has been amazing. If you haven't seen the office episode,
what are they doing?
Go back and watch it.
Oh yeah. They're in there writing together as a little group. Yeah, it's a big deal.
On the Patreon, and we have each of the sort of time slots has its own little community that has started to form around it, and we've got hundreds of people doing that. And we're going to do the 2 for 30 writing productivity challenge coming up in October. And so there's a lot of opportunities to get connected to what we do. So if you are here and you want to know more, come and follow our Facebook page, follow our newsletter, or follow the Patreon, or follow all three, because there's different content in all the places. And do come back when we do our live coaching on the Facebook page. That's the primary reason to follow the Facebook page for me, is that we will randomly do pop-up live coaching videos where we just show up, and if you have questions, you can just ask them, and we're there live and we'll answer. And so that is awesome. And we just did one today, and it was so much fun. I'm like, can we do another one? And then we had to do the podcast. So we will have a lot more opportunities for that coming up this fall. And I hope that you are all well, and I hope that you are all safe, and we will continue to be here for you. And we look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.